Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
Bajaj Corp is the second largest company in the Shishir Bajaj group of companies that has interests in diverse industrial sectors. In 1953, industrial stalwart Kamal Nayan Bajaj established Bajaj Sevashram to market and sell hair oils and other beauty products. Recording a steady growth over the years, the company is now worth almost 900 crore rupees. In addition to its highly successful hair oil business, in which the company's brand Bajaj Almond Drops Hair Oil is a market leader, the company has recently ventured into the skincare segment as well with the acquisition of the Nomarks brand. Bajaj Almond Drops is the largest hair oil brand in the Indian hair oil market, commanding an astounding 60% of the market share. Strong brand recall of Bajaj both in rural and urban markets, its wealth of experience in the FMCG sector, and its state-of-the-art manufacturing plants in Paonta Sahib and Dehradun have been the driving forces of Bajaj Corp's success story. Hello and welcome to Intel series Incredible Journeys, Brands and Leaders, the show that puts the spotlight on some of India's most renowned companies. On the show today, we are exploring the FMCG arm of a leading business house of India. I'm here at the Bajaj Corp office in Noida and I'm in conversation with Sumit Malhotra, the Managing Director of Bajaj Corp. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today, Sumit.
Thanks, Madhu, for having me here.
Well, now the Bajaj Group is an iconic business house of India, and let's talk a little bit about the FMCG company, Bajaj Corp, that you're leading here. Tell us about the significant achievements of the company over the last couple of years, things that you would consider milestones.
I think you put your finger on the spot directly that Bajaj is an iconic brand in itself. The group itself is so large, but for a small company like ours, I think it was a disadvantage because we were perhaps by far the smallest company in the whole Bajaj group, and therefore we weren't ever looked on with any kind of seriousness. And the whole thing changed when the current chairman of our company, Mr. Kushagar Bajaj, came in, and he started looking at this FMCG arm of the larger company, of the larger group. Yeah. And he realized that there was a potential to be had. And it was only after 2004, 2005 that the journey of this company started.
Right.
To put into perspective, this company is actually 90 years old. But we actually started, let's say, the chrysalis only after 2005. And since then, we have grown from a 68 crore company to approximately 870 odd crore company in the last 13 years, 12 years rather.
Take us through the various product segments that Bajaj Corp is into.
When we started this process of change, we used to have two sections in the company, two divisions. One was the medical division, where we used to have Ayurvedic medicines, and the second was consumer. This company, if you look back, it actually started as an Ayurvedic medicine company.
Right.
It was called Bajaj Sevashram. Sevashram means charity, and that's how it started. But in 2006, 2007, we actually cut off that division and reduced the number of brands in the consumer division. Given the size we were at that point of time, we couldn't support any one of them. So the first thing that we did at that point of time was reduce the burden on the advertising monies that you had. And we moved into a largely hair oil driven company. And whenever you speak to people, they say Bajaj Corp, it's a single product company, which is 93% of our sales comes out of Bajaj Almond Drops. And I keep telling them, you even consider us because they're a single product company.
And today, what's the geographical reach of the company like? Are you looking at tapping newer markets?
When this whole transformation started happening, we were largely North India based company. At this point of time, I think it's very safe to say that we are pan-India at least. So, since we're the largest distributed hair oil brand, we are obviously distributed all over India. The big issue used to happen is outside India, there are very few countries that actually use hair oils. But with the coming of skincare, and we have been able to get into larger number of countries. We are currently in around 38 countries. We have 2 subsidiaries, one in Bangladesh and one in UAE.
Take us through your manufacturing facilities and your production capacity, and are you adopting technology in manufacturing in a big way?
For hair oils, and I'll treat this separately, for hair oils you don't need too much of technology. The most capital intensive part of the manufacturing process is actually the filling part of it. So now you have machines that do 240 bottles per minute, very, very high speed filling machines, and they don't cost much. For example, we have just set up our newest facility in Guwahati, and it's cost all of 6 crores. That's all. So it's not a capital intensive industry, and therefore setting up plants is not too difficult.
Right.
Skincare is different, because skincare you have to be much more cautious about the way you manufacture, the kind of clinical research that you have to put in it, which is something which is small now, but because of our innovation center, we call our R&D facility innovation center. I think we are building up steam there, and that would be the course which would take most of the technology into manufacturing. So currently it's a very simple manufacturing process. We have 10 different plants.
Right.
With GST, it makes more sense to have a plant closer to the market. So our 11th, which is in Baroda, would be coming up, which would be a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility.
So let's talk a little bit about the growth aspect of the company as well. Last couple of years, what's the growth rate that you've seen? What are the numbers that you're projecting for this year?
I think last few years have been bad, and because of any external and internal. Whenever you're changing, you will have a strain on your growth. So we have been approximately at 7-8% growth in turnover. But I think this year we should be able to clock a double-digit growth. But that's not because we are doing significantly better, but because of the base effect. Last year, 6 months were very poor. So I think a double digit is what we could look at it. But I think internally our target is to hit 1,000 crores, and if we can do it, I think we'll be into the next orbit in terms of the growth of this company.
Right. So from here on, what's your vision for Bajaj Corp? Where do you want to see it, say, in the next 5 to 8 years?
Apart from numbers, because numbers are, like I say, it's spreadsheet analysis. You can put a growth number and do a spreadsheet and you'll get it. I think I would like to make it into a more systematic organization. One possible weakness, you could say, is that since we are very small, it was really personality driven. Right. So where you had a good leader, that part of the company would do well. It was very person driven kind of a thing. I would like to move it into a system driven, and therefore getting good, committed, capable people who can devise new systems, because the systems we have do need overhaul. I would say that upfront. We need to have people who can do that overhaul. And once he or she can do that overhaul, you would move into the next orbit, and that would get you growth. Because yes, like innovation, if you had R&D and QC together, you would really not bring out differentiated products. But if you have a leader who's willing to look at innovation as a means of growing, you would have a very different organization in future. That's the kind of organization I would like to see this build into, and that would be giving me the biggest satisfaction.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, let's head into a short break right now, but stay with us because we'll continue to explore the story of Bajaj Corp on the other side. You're watching our special show, Incredible Journeys, Brands and Leaders, only on CNBC TV18. Welcome back to Incredible Journeys, Brands and Leaders, the show that puts the spotlight on some of India's most formidable brands. On the show today, we are learning all about the incredible success story of Bajaj Corp, and now I'm joined by Sandeep Verma, President Sales, Marketing and R&D at Bajaj Corp. Sandeep, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure is all mine.
So first up, let's take an overview of the Indian FMCG sector. What are the opportunities and challenges that you see here, and how are they different from those in other emerging markets?
If you look at the Indian FMCG market, three big factors which are driving the growth or driving the opportunities and the challenges in this market are firstly a big change in demographics, changing lifestyles, and of course the social media. And if I had to get a little bit more in detail, there is a whole burgeoning middle class which is being created in India. So there's a huge amount of migration from the rural markets to the urban markets, which is leading to this huge increase in the urban middle class. So that's the biggest change in demographic that we've seen probably in centuries, which is happening in India. The second big change in demographics is the rise of working women, the percentage of working women in a society. And that is obviously creating a whole new set of opportunities, with the working women bring into the market as such. As far as lifestyle changes are concerned, there is obviously a huge rise in disposable income, which means that people want to buy more brands, more branded products, etc. And because of the whole working women coming into the picture, a lot of lifestyle related ailments and a whole lot of lifestyle related opportunities have sprung up. And then of course there's social media, and we can probably have a complete program on social media and what is happening. But the one or two things which are driving FMCG vis-a-vis social market is this whole need for everyone to look good at all points in time. I think this is the biggest factor which is driving people towards, buying more products, trying to look much better. And then within social media also there is a rise in the consumers' awareness of what crowd power is. So the demand for better services, demand for better products has gone up because the consumers have realized their own power, which is a very, very good thing for the society going forward.
Absolutely. So talking more about the aspirations that are changing and the demographics that are changing, how has your marketing strategy evolved over the years with respect to these?
What has happened typically with us, and let me just start with our flagship brand, Almond Drops per se. So Almond Drops is actually it's a pioneer in many ways. Actually created a category called the light hair oil category, which is basically a category of hair oils that gives you the nourishment and yet is a very non-sticky hair oil. Yeah. So it's a complete pioneer. It's a complete pioneer in that sense. In the initial years, our whole perspective was to keep building this light hair oil category and focus on making this category bigger and bigger. What has changed for us in the last 2 years is that now we started looking at the overall hair oil category per se. And our job as the market leader in the light hair oil category was to take market leadership in the total hair oil category itself. So I'm very pleased to announce that we are now the market leader in the hair oils category, per se. And we have done this by focusing, changing the narratives a little bit more to suit to the changing consumer preferences, to try and connect with stories with the consumer which are more relevant basis her insights.
Right.
All our advertising that you see, if you see our advertising from let's say 3 years ago, was basically very mood-based advertising, and which spoke more about what light hair oil can do, for you. So nice non-sticky hair, and all kinds of nourishment, etc. Now what you will see now is that we are talking about real problems which consumers face with their existing products, and how Almond Drops can actually come into the picture and solve that particular issue for them. Yeah. So it's more slice of life-based advertising now as compared to the mood advertising which we used to have earlier. So there's a complete shift. Now, similarly in skincare as well, on Nomarks now, from just talking about what Nomarks can do, we are taking real life situations of the working women or of the Indian women per se, and then trying to build a brand story around her narrative itself. So I think that's how we've sort of tried to keep up to pace with the Indian women and her aspirations in life.
Right. So what are your biggest challenges in India as well as in overseas markets as far as marketing the brand is concerned?
So I think in India as well as in most of the other emerging markets, the biggest challenge is that the categories are not as evolved. So developed markets have more evolved categories, more mature markets. In India, the categories are not as evolved. So most of the categories have low penetration. So the biggest challenge in India and the other emerging markets is how do you get the consumer to change his or her existing habit. Now, since all of our products are in the premium or mid-premium categories, like a light hair oil, which is almost 2x the price of a coconut oil, or Nomarks, a brand, which is 250 RPI to a fairness cream. All our categories are in this stage of low penetration. So our big job then becomes convincing the consumer to change her existing habit and move on to our product. So that is our biggest challenge that we have. And then of course the whole consumer purchase journey in an emerging market is very different from a consumer purchase journey in the developed market. So the whole considering a brand, to evaluating a brand, to finally buying the brand is quite different. When you consider a brand in emerging markets, you have fewer pool of brands to choose from.
Right.
Then when you evaluate it, word of mouth in emerging markets is a lot more important.
Correct.
Because people have this whole societal validation, at the back of whatever their mind as such. And then finally, the buying journey is quite different. In emerging markets, you're talking about a traditional market, about a retail store, which is maybe a 50 square feet store. In a developed market, you're talking about a 50,000 square feet store. So the consumer experience at the final point where she's going to buy the product is very different as such. So these are the two, I would say, that the consumer purchase journey and the product usage as these are two big challenges that we face in the emerging markets versus the developed markets.
And how important are the rural markets for you in India, and what's the mix of revenue like when it comes to urban and rural?
Two markets which are growing the fastest are rural markets and metros. Okay, for us also rural market is obviously very important. Currently 40% of our volumes and about 30% of our revenue comes from the rural markets. So like I said, we are a premium brand, we are a premium hair oil brand. So our biggest challenge in the rural market is getting the consumer to try a product at least once. So we are the first hair oil market to actually launch a sachet for the consumers. And this was done with a specific focus towards the rural consumer who does not want to spend too much on the hair oil per se. So we launched the 1 rupee sachet. There were other players who had launched 1 rupee sachet before us, but they never worked for a variety of reasons. Then we said that besides the sachet, we also have to give the rural consumer the bottle. Now obviously I can't give him my bigger bottles as such. So we actually created a 10 rupee bottle for the rural consumer as such. And then we said that, but if I give him a bottle, if I give him or her a bottle, it'll probably get into the backside of the shelves and she will never see the light of it. So we've used a very innovative flow wrap format for the bottle so that it can be hung like the sachet. So it gives me visibility and it gives her a bottle use as such. So that's as far as marketing is concerned. And of course, in the distribution part of it, what we have done is that we earlier used to rely on the wholesale channel to distribute the products into the small retail outlets, into the villages. We've now decided to go direct. So just to give you a perspective, we have doubled a number of substockists in the rural market just this year itself. So the first 6 months, we've doubled the number of substockists in rural markets.
Right.
We've increased a direct rural coverage by about 25% in the first 6 months. So more and more we are trying to access the rural consumer ourselves directly, so that we can give her her entire range of products instead of just the product that the wholesaler would want us to actually put over there.
Okay, and you also take care of innovation at Bajaj Corp. So tell us, what path-breaking innovations can we expect from the Bajaj Corp stable in the near future?
Well, I can reveal that to you, but I'll have to kill you after that. So because it's a big secret. We've already done a first big relaunch in years. We've relaunched our iconic Brahmi Amla hair oil as an Ayurvedic hair oil. And just to give you a little bit more background, Brahmi Amla is actually the first commercially sold hair oil in India. So it's the oldest hair oil in India. We've relaunched it as an Ayurvedic hair oil, and I think it's a little too early to comment on it, but it's going well from whatever I see of it. Going forward, we will keep adding more and more products into our hair care portfolio, but only the ones which give the consumer a differentiated benefit over and above what she's currently using in the market. And we have a very long innovation pipeline.
So what's your vision for Bajaj Corp from here on?
My vision is to have a whole set of hair care products maybe under the Almond Drop stable, or even under a new brand, My vision is to have a skincare category where we are the market leaders in the anti-mark space and enter into some of the other skincare categories as well. So I'm looking at a scenario at a period of time where we have a 50-50 share of hair care and skincare, going forward in the next 4 to 5 years.
All right, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you.
Well, with that, it's a wrap of this episode of Incredible Journeys, Brands and Leaders, the series that puts the spotlight on some of India's most renowned brands. We'll be back next time with yet another exciting tale of a brand that has taken India by storm. Thanks for joining us. Goodbye.
Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.